Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. And with me today is Barbara Daoust. Barbara's a mindset strategist and a business coach. She's also a motivational speaker and an author of a book called True Love, True Self, A Journey to Self-Love. We met last year through a mutual friend, and I immediately connected with her energy and her no-nonsense approach to helping people grow and get results. I also had the opportunity to hear her speak to a group of female entrepreneurs last month, and she was fabulous. Welcome, Barbara.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I love that no-nonsense approach, huh? I love that.
That's what it looks like from this end, and I appreciate that. As an entrepreneur, I want to get to the point and get things done as quickly as possible. So that is the kind of approach that appeals to me.
Thank you.
So I want to jump right in and ask you about your personal story. It is interesting, it is dramatic, and I want to hear how it has led you to being a mindset strategist and a business consultant at this point in your life.
Well, thank you for that question. I spent 30 years in the entertainment business, and I started out myself as a performer, and in my 20s became a teacher, then a director. And about 2 months before my 25th wedding anniversary, I lost my husband suddenly. I had been having a lot of success, and there was, a lot more opportunity ahead, but I didn't know what to do next after I lost him, and I spiraled out of control into quite a dark night. And then I shut down. I had a coaching academy that I shut down, and I shut down my private practice. And I just went on a soul journey to really ask, what's the meaning of all of this? And he was diagnosed with 4th stage lung cancer on May 5th and gone May 31st, 3 weeks later. So all my dreams were gone, all the attachments, everything that I knew had completely capsized. Who was I waking up to every day? Who was I planning my life with? And then about 9 months after that, when I was getting back on my feet, I discovered his mother dead in her apartment, and then felt the another trauma from that, and started to suffer from situational PTSD. And then my father also died within 2 months of his diagnosis of lung cancer. Then my best friend of 25 years died in front of me. And then my 40-year-old brother-in-law died jumping out of a plane, and his parachute didn't open. So I definitely went on a huge pity party, and with good reason, and a lot of grief. And then it took me to places where it cracked open my heart in so many ways. And I ended up going on a journey of self-discovery, as well as why was change so complicated, and why was, life on a new path so difficult. It was just so unknown. And there are 2 ways that we change, and we don't like change. We say we want change, but there's resistance to change. And I'll talk more about that. There's a reason for that resistance to change, but I didn't know why. And there are 2 ways that we change. And one is through a traumatic event, where we don't have choice. We're not at choice. And the other way is through the constant spaced repetition of a new idea that you go after, and you start to reprogram your mind. So I really, once I started to heal myself, I studied in a master's program in spiritual psychology. I certified as a life coach. And then I found Bob Proctor, and I really started to understand how the mind functions. And I certified as a thinking into results consultant with him. And as a result of that, I doubled my practice and tripled my income in less than a year. And the information that I learned, I was just aghast at why wasn't I taught this ever before? And I also now work with a partner, a doctor who does brainwave entrainment, and I'm certifying as a brain coach with Dr. Daniel Amen. So I'm just fascinated with what's the difference between the brain versus the mind, and how does mind, body, spirit really work together? You know, how is it aligned? How does it connect? Because most people focus on one or the other, but it's really all three working together that makes the most difference in one's life.
That is a powerful story. And it makes sense how you got where you are. Tell me about Bob Proctor for people who aren't familiar with him. Tell me about his organization and his approach and what was so attractive to you about it at the time that you found it.
So Bob Proctor was in The Secret. Bob Proctor is 86 years old. And Bob Proctor, I just saw him 3 weeks ago in Los Angeles on stage, and he's on fire. The man is an open channel. So Bob really combines business and success principles with spirituality. So he really blends heart and brain and mind. So it is a real total body, mind, spirit approach. And I also have investigated other ways to do that as well along the way. And he helped me realize that I had to change my self-image. And once I learned what that meant, and there were lessons in this program that I facilitate and consult. It's 12 sessions, and there are things in that program that I didn't hear about until I was 50 years old. And I kept scratching my head going, why didn't I know this before? Or why in all the years of self-development and personal growth that I've done, why did I never hear about the purpose of a C-type goal, which is really going after something that you have no idea how to get? And that the main purpose of that is to be able to pull up the old programming, to pull up the paradigms, to pull up the resistance to change and why we resist change, and to have a deeper understanding of how the mind works and why we resist change and why we keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and why we like our comfort zone. The light bulbs started going off. And with all my groups and all my clients, for them too, they make exponential growth in their business and in their personal lives. It's not incremental. It's not the way we've been taught to measure ourselves through SMART goals, let's say. I believe in SMART goals, but only after you are, after you've established your C-type goal, which is going after something you don't know how to do. And once you do that, if you're excited and you're scared at the same time, you're going in the right direction. If you don't do that, you're going in the wrong direction. You're going, you're not stretching. And, I like to use the analogy of if you're going to climb Mount Everest, it's who are you becoming along the way? It's not about achieving the goal. It's about who are you becoming along the way, and what are the things you have to learn about yourself in order to take the next step. So the combination, the three things were, this concept of going after something you don't know how to do and to stay out of the how. Understanding what a paradigm is, which is fixed ideas in the subconscious mind that are running the show, because subconscious mind is controlling 95% of our behavior. Neuroscience has the proof for that these days. And when your paradigms are afraid of losing losing control, and are afraid that something is scary or that there's the unknown, they're going to raise their shackles. They're going to start screaming. They're going to start getting out of control. And it's when you feel that and you have anxiety and you see it, that's the opportunity to look at it, examine it, and do something differently. And then that leads you to really understanding how to develop a new self-image, not the one that you always identify yourself with. Who are you becoming? Who is your future self? Here's the dream. You've got to come from the dream, which means you've got to start acting it here, right now, in present time. And to really, I say to people, you probably don't know who you really are, and you never will until you discover the parts of yourself you haven't yet met. You have to pretend.
I love that. And I want to get into a piece that is underneath that in terms of paradigms and programming, and talk about something we have not yet talked about on this podcast, which is ancestral wounds. And I want to hear what you have to say about what those are for people who aren't familiar with the concept or the phrase, although I bet when you describe them, there will be some knowing from a lot of people listening to the podcast about what that's about. And how do you recognize those? What kinds of challenges do those create for the person that you want to become? And how do you heal those?
Well, great question. I wish we had an hour and a half to go just through that question. So to summarize it, and to know that if people want to know more about it, they can reach out to me, because it's a very in-depth question. And essentially, subconscious mind, ego mind are holding on to the familiar because they want to protect us. They want to protect us from the unknown. They want to protect us from emotional damage and, fear of humiliation, embarrassment. So the real purpose is to protect us. But everything that we want is in the unknown. But no two people can be compared, because no two people have the same paradigms. No two people and they may have the same parents, but they don't have the same experiences. They don't have the same teachers. They don't have the same events in their lives, and they don't have the same belief system. So no two people can be compared. So first off, it's really about, we need to cooperate here. It's not about competition. It's about cooperation, and to understand with compassion that everybody is uniquely themselves. That's it. And so with ancestral programming, we go back. Now, the stats and the dates and the knowledge on this, it varies. But scientists did an experiment with rats. And the experiment was that they gave electric shock to, or some kind of, negative feedback to rats when they put cherry blossoms in their cage. And the rats, freaked out. And then they discovered that the next generation of rats, when they smelled cherry blossoms, they went into high anxiety and stress without any cherry blossoms being there. And they discovered this for 6 generations of rats. So in the information that I've gathered, it's possible that we can go back 6 generations, 14 generations of ancestral programming. So we can come in with this at a very, very deep level, which is usually in our delta level, which is the deeper unknown. It's like, imagine the iceberg, right? And the tip of the iceberg is the conscious mind, and what's underneath is the subconscious mind. But what's really way down there is the unconscious mind. And to access the unconscious mind is complicated to do. And so there's all kinds of, modalities to help heal traumas, to help heal, PTSD. And for us, it's really about looking at what triggers us in this present day and time. What's a trigger? So if somebody taps you on the hand because you went to take their phone, and you get a violent response to that, and you get outraged by that, and you want to kill that person, that's usually tied to either some trauma in your own life or something that's been passed on for generations. So because you've been programmed by your parents have been programmed by their parents, and that programming, it's like, why does first generation welfare become second generation welfare, third generation welfare, fourth generation welfare? It's all in the DNA. And in order to start identifying this and to identify paradigms, whenever you have a trigger, and sometimes you could be addicted to emotions such as anxiety. There's no reason to be anxious. You're making a nice cup of coffee. You've got a roof over your head. There's pleasant music in the background. You've got shelter. You're warm, but yet you're feeling anxious. And these feelings of anxiety, I call them addictive states that are running the show. They're running the loop. And whether or not that was passed on to you through programming, because that's the way your mother was, that's the way your father was, that's the way your grandparents were, whatever it is, it's to be able to start identifying what are excuses that you make, what are rationalizations that you make, what are justifications that you make. When you say, but I can't, I don't have money, I don't have time, that's all been programmed. That's all part of a program. And that usually is connected to the self-image and the programming. They go hand in hand. And if your self-image is that, you can't do, you can't have for whatever reason. It's your innermost dialogue that you keep repeating over and over and over again that's running the show. So your thinking is leading to your results. You've got to look at your results, and then you get to examine what's the behavior that's creating those results. So there's so much, to pack into that, Amy, but that's essentially it, kind of in a nutshell.
I like to go for the hard things and try and fit them
Yeah.
into a nutshell. So tell me how all of this comes together in the masterminds that you lead.
So I lead mastermind groups, and I do it online, and I also do it in person. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, I meet with my groups in person. I'm meeting a group tonight in Sherman Oaks. I had a group last night in Santa Monica. I'm having another group coming up that I'm just starting to form in Calabasas, Westlake area. And what I do is I meet with people 2 hours a week. They're small groups between 6 and 8 people. 8 is max. I like it to be 6. And we go through the Thinking into Results program, which is a 12 video session. And it's all about reprogramming the mind and rewiring the brain. And it starts out with choosing a C-type goal for your personal life and for your professional life, making a commitment to it. And then the rest of the program is about dealing with the paradigms that come up around that, the knowing, doing gap. Who are you being, and how can you create a future self and self-image? It's about attitude. It's about leadership. And essentially, it's about, can you lead yourself? And people take bold action. And when you take bold action and you start doing things differently, then here's the dream and here you are. And as you get into the first steps, the dream starts to come like this. And then opportunity starts to come to you, and your awareness goes, oh my goodness, this is different. And then you start to open up to following that, the law. It's the law. And it's all about the law of vibration. And so Bob Proctor in The Secret talks a lot about spiritual laws, universal laws. So we're combining business approach with universal laws and action behavior. And then the great thing about the groups, and even when I do it online, is, and I've seen this over and over again because I questioned it for many years, why were people repeating the same program with me 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 times. Tonight I'm going to a group, the woman's done the program 13 times with me. And essentially the answer that I've come up with is that they do better when they're in the program, and they do better when they're in a group because of accountability.
For sure.
It's bottom line. And the program is designed, it's not an inexpensive program. So when you make the investment, I can tell you that everybody in my group shows up. So I like to keep it intimate so that people really, are held to their word. And it's not that you have your back up against the wall, it's that you're at choice. And when you wake up to taking 100% responsibility for your life and stop blaming outside of yourself, then you're not going to be sitting on the sofa watching stars on TV complaining about their success when you don't have the success that you want.
Yeah, that's powerful. So I gave you the opportunity to ask me a question, and I will let you ask it of me, and then I'm going to turn around and ask it of you. I love this part of the podcast. So what was the question that you wanted to ask me?
So the question that I wanted to ask you is, what's the biggest lie that you're telling yourself?
Oh, such a good one. And so deep. The biggest lie that I am telling myself is that no one cares what I have to say. And that is a constant in my head as I embark on new projects, as I engage in sales in my business. It is something that I constantly have to fight against.
Yeah. That's great. So what are you doing about it?
Not listening to it and continuing on. I have such a passion for what I'm doing with Align Women that that I let that passion drive me. And the more steps that I take towards the vision that I have, the more affirmation I get that I am on the right path. So it is a positive feedback loop. and I'm willing to stretch myself to continue the positive feedback loop, as opposed to walling myself up and creating a negative feedback loop. Because if I believe no one cares what I have to say, and then I don't say anything, I will continue to believe that no one cares what I have to say.
Right, exactly. And yet you know that you have education, right, that others don't have. And you know that you have knowledge that others don't have. And you know that you've got information that could help others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're open to a little coaching,
I would love it.
right? Just keep your focus all about serving the other person who needs to be, they have their lighthouse, right? And they need to just have a little bit more light.
Yeah.
And that your beam right now is directing those people who are attracted to that light, and keep the focus outward.
Yes. That has been a huge shift for me in my willingness to do all sorts of things, in my willingness to do the podcast, in my willingness to step into a leadership role, because once I understood that this was in service to other people, my willingness completely changed. I think we'd probably call that a paradigm shift.
That's a paradigm shift right there. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it has been fun to experience.
Great.
So tell me, I would love to hear from someone who does so much internal work and helps to facilitate other people doing internal work. You are still human. You still have your struggles. What's the biggest lie that you tell yourself?
You know, the biggest lie that I tell myself is that I don't know enough. You know, and so I'm the eternal student, which is okay. But I used to suffer and struggle with the getting ready to get ready syndrome.
Sure.
So I'm a really, really good student, and I shine as a student, you know. And so, but the belief, because in my background, my mother went to grade 6, my father went to grade 7. My father completed his high school when I was in high school. And I was called stupid for the longest time because I did different things. I did things differently. I was, you know, involved in theater and nobody knew or could understand why I would do half the things that I was doing. So I was more the black sheep, stupid person. Had nothing to do with education, but I interpreted it that I needed to get a lot more knowledge before I could succeed. You know, it's like a lot of people that I work with feel they have to have a degree to be successful, but that's just part of a belief system that's been programmed. Sure. You know, and so I'm challenged with, I need to know more before I leap. I need to know more, you know, before I start a new program. I need to know more, you know. I'm that squirrel that's just gathering up the nuts, you know, but then I judge myself for knowing it all. So it's a real paradox between the balancing, right, of that it's okay to know what I know and not have to know it all, and to be, you know, careful not to judge myself as a know-it-all.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I come from a very similar, mindset, and I have experienced paralysis by analysis, which is another version of getting ready to get ready. I have experienced imposter syndrome. I have been a serial list maker, to my detriment. I can spend all my time putting the list together and not get anything actually done. One of the lessons that my partner shares with his clients, because Dave Gieselman is a coach who works with people on mindset, is be willing to do it shitty. And that is a lesson that I keep top of mind, and it really, really helps me to be productive because it excuses me from having to do it perfectly.
It's so beautiful. What I call that for myself and my clients is design your messy.
Yep. And the other version of that is done is better than perfect.
That's right, because perfect never gets done.
Exactly. I
love it.
So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you for more information, for information on your masterminds? Where can people reach you?
So people can go to barbaradoust.thinkingintoresults.com. That's the website that shares a little bit more about me. If they want to reach me, they can email me at Barbara@BarbaraDaoust. That's Daoust. I'm sure it'll be written in your podcast, right? .com. And that feel free to reach out to me, and would love to connect. If anybody wants to go after a C-type goal, I'm starting in a couple of weeks a new group. So, just leap.
Leap. Take the leap with a structure, a coach, a community, and accountability that will actually help you achieve the goal that you want to reach.
Right, exactly. It's not about in my speech that you heard me talk about, sometimes I would dive into the pool without any water.
Right. And there's plenty of support out there.
That's right.
So thank you so much for joining me today on the Align Women podcast, Barbara. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Amy. Such a pleasure.
It was wonderful.
And you're up to great things. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Align Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. And visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women podcast.